Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's webinar. In today's webinar, we'll be discussing about type 1 and type 2 error in social science researches. Now, in biological researches, there is no chance of a research bringing up an error. You cannot take up any chance of getting an erroneous answer in biological researches. For example, you're inventing a medicine for fever. Now, you cannot have at least 1% of error in that, because if that for 1% of error, you can really cost the life of thousands of people. So in biological researches, error percentage is 1 or 0, less than that. You cannot even have 1%. But in social science researches, it is prone to error because you are dealing with the cognitive feeling of people. You're dealing with the innermost thoughts of people. They are predictions, they are preferences, they are attitudes, which is not easily measurable, just like in biological researches. So here we have the chance of making errors. That is why we always say, like, we have 5% chance of error, like, and 95% being accurate. So there are basically two types of errors, that is type 1 and type 2 error in hypothesis testing. Now, to understand this, we will take a matrix called false positive and false negative. Now, this is something like this. You have measured or perceived facts and you have the reality. Now, if both are true, if the measured or perceived facts are true as well as the reality is true, then it's okay. Similarly, if both are false, it is okay. But the problem arises when perceived or measured facts are true and in reality it is false, and at the same time the measured or perceived facts are false and in reality it is true. Now let's try to understand this with a small example. Now we have a lady as well as a gentleman. Now both of them are having some sort of a butterflies in the stomach. And the lady is confirming, like, yes, she is pregnant. Now, the gentleman has not even a clue that he is pregnant. But both of them go to the hospital and getting diagnosed. Now, the scenario is something like, the lady goes to the hospital and the lady was almost sure, like, yeah, I'm having the symptoms of pregnancy, and the doctor diagnoses her to be pregnant. She becomes happy. Now, the gentleman, she goes to the hospital. Gentleman has some sort of butterflies in her stomach, but doesn't mean that he has no clue or no intuition that she is pregnant. And the doctor says, yes, this is nothing to do with pregnancy. You're not pregnant, my dear gentleman. This is due to some other problem. Both of them are okay. Now, the problem in a different scenario can prop up like this. The gentleman is diagnosed pregnant when he goes to the doctor. Now, gentleman was perceived like he is not pregnant, he is something else. But when he goes to the doctor does some sort of a blood check and everything, and comes out with a result saying that, hey guy, you are pregnant. Now, this is known as false positive. And even though, you see, she was not pregnant, there was something that went wrong in the medical analysis. So this is known as type 1 error. On the contrary, what happened here with the lady is something like false negative. Now, she was sure that she was pregnant. Now, she went to the doctor and the doctor diagnosed, and there was something wrong with the diagnosing method, and the sugar results and everything, or the blood results came out and said that she is not pregnant. In fact, she was pregnant. There was baby inside, but the medical research said that she is not pregnant. Now, these two are problematic things, and these are called type 1 and type 2 errors. Now, let's look in little more detail. Now, what is type 1 error? The type 1 error is called false positive. You predicted that the man is pregnant, but actually he was not pregnant. Now, this is known as type 1 error. Now, the type 2 error is something like, you predicted that the woman is not pregnant, but actually she was pregnant. This is known as type 2 error. So we can just summarize type 1 and type 2 error as the pregnancy test has produced a positive result. If woman is actually not pregnant, then we say that the test produced a false positive and it's called type 1 error. Now type 2 error or a false negative is an error of failing to reject a null hypothesis when the alternative hypothesis is true state of nature. That is, if a pregnancy test reports negative when the woman is in fact pregnant, is called type 2 error. Now, when we do statistical researches, when we do the hypothesis testing, we can really we can reject or fail to reject the null hypothesis. So because of our decision, there are 4 outcomes that can really pop up. Now, you can reject the null hypothesis when it is false, and you can accept the null hypothesis when it is true. Now, both these cases, you're right, there is nothing problem in it. But when you reject the null hypothesis, even though it is true, it is called type 1 error or alpha. Now, if you fail to reject the null hypothesis, even when it is false, it is called type 2 error or beta. Now, let's try to understand this with the classic example that we were taking in my previous webinars, eating ice cream and its relationship with falling sick. Now, H0 or the null hypothesis was eating ice cream has no relationship with falling sick. Now, the alternate hypothesis, eating ice cream has a relationship with falling sick. Now, you did the test and you understand, and it was proved that eating ice cream has a relationship with falling sick. In this particular scenario, you reject the null hypothesis because null hypothesis, eating ice cream has no relationship. Now, in this case, if you reject H0, there is no problem. Now, again, in another scenario, another test, it was proved that eating ice cream has no relationship with falling sick. And in this case, you accept H0 even though it is true. So there is no problem again. Now, here you check this particular one. It was proved again that eating ice cream has no relationship with falling sick. But you're rejecting H0. Now, H0 was eating hypothesis has no relationship with falling sick. You're rejecting it. Now, this is called type 1 error. Now, once again, we did the research and we proved that eating ice cream has relationship with falling sick, and we got problem here when we accepted the H0 even when it is false. The H0 was eating ice cream has no relationship with falling sick. You accepted the null hypothesis even though it was false. This is what is known as type 2 error. So I hope you have got at least a little bit of an understanding about type 1 and type 2 error. Now I'll summarize like this. Type 1 error is the false rejection of a true null hypothesis. It is a probability equal to alpha. Now type 2 error is the false retention of a false null hypothesis. It has a probability equal to beta. Now I was just taking a tip of an iceberg about type 1 and type 2 error. There are a lot of complications that arises because of these errors, and there are a lot of things to be understood from the numerical part of it. Now this webinar is just a trigger so that you can delve deep into all these things. So thanks for watching. This is Jithin Benedict. Thank you very much.